would be a highly sexual act based on the Song of Solomon, chapter 4. The woman was symbolically giving herself as a bride to Jesus. Such costly perfume was to be saved for her wedding day, to be used only for her bridegroom. Shockingly, she brought it instead to Jesus. A greater shock was the fact that Jesus received her and commended her. This was not only an unconventional act, this was a transgressive one in their minds. So we can note in Jesus' answer that he was addressing the disciples' fears. Actually, Jesus went further than that by giving them something more to ponder. She did what she could. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. Burial? What burial? The disciples were still blind to the fact that a dark hour was approaching and that Jesus would be betrayed. Remember that Judas was still in the room as well. They still believed that Jesus would triumph over the evils of his present powers. Jesus, in a coded way, reminded his disciples of what he had been telling them over and over. He is telling them that they don't understand how right she is. He is telling them that he is her bridegroom, not in the sense of the older order of things, but in a new, extraordinary way, and that he also is her anointed king. He will be a bridegroom only after the cross, only after he rises again, and only after his triumphal return as the king. He is telling them that she will be remembered as one who anointed him to usher in the kingdom. Their heads must have been swimming in confusion as they tried to fathom it. Their thoughts probably went something like this. This woman, whom we did not invite, came into the room and held that nard. I heard that this genuine nard is passed down from David's reign and used only to anoint a king. Mary has a rich father with connections. He probably got this for her wedding, but she still should not be allowed to enter this inner circle. And the way she barged in as we were preparing our battle into Jerusalem is ridiculous. Jesus, how can you receive this woman and act as if she understands you better than we do? We have sacrificed so much for you. We could call this the beginning of the feminist movement. Interesting thought. Jesus is the founder of every movement that liberates men and women from oppression and inequality. Further, this act of remembrance reveals something about God's way of leaving a legacy. That evening at Bethany, amid the aroma that Mary spilled, one can imagine that Leonardo da Vinci's paintings and Johann Sebastian Bach's cantatas were floating in the air as well. Every act of creativity is an intuitive response to offer back to God what has been given us. We twist this intuition and may create something transgressive and injurious, but the source of this creative impulse is the Creator. Again, Mary's nard on his body was the only earthly possession Jesus took with him to the cross. To me, all art resonates from the aroma of Christ as he hung on the cross. Art seeps out like Mary's nard on the floor that is supposed to be clean. Such art reveals what is truly beautiful, Mary's act, and what is truly injurious, Judas's act, at the same time. I tell many artists about what Jesus states here. The poor you will always have with you. The central issue, here is not Jesus seems to suggest a problem separating the rich and the poor. No, the central issue can be posed as a question. Who do we love? Most free and spontaneous adoration transcends time and space. Love breaks open categories, ideologies, cultures, and political divides. So if you are an artist, or I would add, a musician, any gift that we offer, this passage asks, are you passionate enough? Do you have the singular focus that Mary had? Do you create for an audience of one? But of course, Mary would have cared very little about these discussions of our motives. She simply took a great risk, trembling in thanksgiving, knowing that the king must be anointed. In one act, she broke open the mystery of the moment. Her nard spread, and its aroma filled the room. It was an ephemeral act, one that she did not think of as art. I am sure she herself was surprised by Jesus' words that her act would be remembered, that she would have a lasting legacy. Christ is the great artist. Maybe what he saw in Mary was an artist emulating and mirroring his great sacrifice. In Mary's devotion, she expressed the beautiful to Jesus. What makes us truly beautiful? What makes us not just good, not just right, but beautiful? Can our churches be beautiful again and not just promote goodness and truth? These passages can teach us much about church and life in general, even if you can't see yourself as an artist. It's one thing to aspire to make our work, our business, our art, and our political endeavors good and even successful. It's another to aspire to make them beautiful. It's one thing to try to educate and raise our children to be good and successful, but it's another to try to raise them to be beautiful. Not superficially beautiful on the outside, but truly beautiful on the inside. What makes this country, well, here he says America the beautiful, but we'll say Canada the beautiful. Canada Day is coming up. Is it the beauty of its natural scenery as we look out from the top of the peaks of mountains? Or is it the beauty of the sacrifice seen in the bravery of firefighters who climbed up those falling towers of 9/11? Remember what the disciples deemed a waste? Jesus called the most necessary. We have much to learn from Mary. What is frivolous act of devotion? What is our frivolous act of devotion today? What is our art or music? Or hopefully speaking. Mary's act of extravagance is what it means to create in and through love. Art, in many ways, helps us in this process of lament. But again, we must be careful not to recommend anything to someone who is suffering as if we know what to prescribe to heal despair. Do not apply plumbing theology to a broken life. Instead, learn to think deeply and experience sorrow deeply yourself through the arts and the gifts of God given to you. Some thoughts for us to carry. And if you're interested in the book, come and talk to me, and you might want to go and buy it and read it. It's a great read. We're going to ask you to come back and use your gift again and open it up for great joy for us. Thank you. response. And so they've done the call. Here's our prayer of response. We are educated by you through companionship with you to bring us into alliance with you in doing what you desire.
Be just, be kind, be humble, walking in
We are empowered by you to be ambassadors for your work for this world. All